everybody, welcome back to Library Says. My name is Jamie, and today I'm doing the mid-year book freakout tag. Anybody else just completely blown away that the year is almost half over? How did that happen? I mean, I guess that's what happens when you go into hibernation for 3 months, like we did this year. But I'm just blown away that it's summer. I don't know how it happened. All right, so I'm gonna get started. There are so many good books I've read this year. It was really difficult for me to figure out which ones to use as answers for which questions, but I did spread them all out so I'm not repeating books over and over. The first question, best book I've read so far this year. This was the most difficult one for me to answer. I had like 8 different books that I was debating, but I've decided to go with The Bookish Life of Nina Hill. I was obsessed with this, and I feel like people who read it either love it or don't get it at all, like it irritated them, which I can understand. But it's about a woman who has extreme social anxiety and is an introvert, who also has a social life and enjoys relationships with friends and going out and doing things, but needs her alone time. And it is the most relatable, to me, interpretation of introversion in a book I've ever read. It was like seeing myself. I loved Nina, I understood her. She had some really severe anxiety, which I don't have as much, but I could certainly relate to her. And I loved the romance, I loved the relationship she built. It just made me feel so much. And I read it so quickly, like 1 sitting, 2 sittings, and I made everyone I know read it. If you haven't read it, highly recommend. If you are into books and you're an introvert, I can't imagine you won't like it. Number 2, best sequel of 2020. For this one, I'm gonna go for Check Please Book 2, Sticks and Scones by Ngozi Akazu. This is the second and final bind-up of the Check Please webcomic that is now being physically printed, of course, about Eric Biddle, who is going to college at Samuel University, think like Yale, to play hockey, but he's gay and he loves to bake. And he doesn't know if he'll quite fit in with his hockey team. These are so feel good, and the romance is so slow burn. You'll want to rip your hair out, but they are just wonderful and happy. And this conclusion to this long-running webcomic literally made me cry, gave me goosebumps, was just absolutely perfect. Question 3, a new release I haven't gotten to yet but want to. For this one, I'm cheating a little bit because one of these isn't quite a new release and the second one isn't out yet, but they're sort of new release-ish. I'm gonna go with Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and Take a Hint, Danny Brown. The first one has been out a while and I haven't read it yet, and the second one is about to come out, and I'm just super excited. I want to read both of them. I've decided to wait until the second one comes out, and then I will kind of binge them. I think that's what I'm thinking. But from everything I've heard, they're wonderful, and the covers are adorable, and I'm just very excited to read them. So that's definitely going to be coming up soon. All right, next up is my most anticipated release for the second half of 2020. This is one I honestly hadn't heard of until very recently, and it's Sky Hunter by Marie Lu. This is like a sci-fi, dystopian, girl takes on the empire sort of book. And I'm not gonna lie, I initially clicked on this because it's a beautiful cover. I mean, look at its cover. It's unreal. So I hope it's amazing, and I'm wildly excited for it. All right, and then biggest disappointment of 2020 so far. For me, this one's gonna be House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I'm a big Sarah J. Maas fan. I've loved most of what she's written, and I had such high hopes for this, and I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars. If you want to hear my explanation and sort of my analysis of the book and why I was disappointed with it, go ahead and check out my wrap-up from April. I talk all about it right there. Biggest surprise so far of 2020. I got an advanced copy from NetGalley of Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey and loved it. I was not anticipating loving this book. I thought it would be fine. I did not like the first book in this series. I thought the second one was good, definitely an improvement on the first, but like nothing amazing I'm gonna go back and reread over and over. And then this one honestly shocked me. I loved it so much. It's a hate to love. The characters individually, we get so much from them and they grow so much, and then their relationship together, the slow burn and their chemistry and their tension, and when they finally do get together, like I just was here for it. I ate it up, and I am shocked. I am shocked by that. My favorite new to me author of 2020 is Francesca Zappia. I had not read a single book by her. I don't know how that happened or why. There was no reason. I just hadn't. And I read for, I think, Contemporary-a-thon earlier this year, I read Eliza and Her Monsters. I loved it. Just wonderful. And I know I'm not the first person to talk about it. In fact, I'm probably the last person on this ship. But I loved Eliza. I loved her relationships. I loved the comic and the use of the comic throughout the book and the illustrations and the fanfic element and just everything. And it was such a wonderful representation of depression and social anxiety. Her relationship with her mother, just so good. If you haven't read it, which I'm assuming you probably have, because where have I been? Please go check out Eliza and Her Monsters. I'm definitely going to read everything else Francesca Zappia has written because I can't imagine it won't be wonderful too. Next up is my newest fictional crush. I'm going to go with Daniel from my current read, The Boyfriend Project. Daniel is a half Korean, half African American ex-Marine turned secret agent coder for the Treasury Department's investigative intelligence branch that I didn't know existed. He goes undercover to solve financial-based crimes like money laundering for terrorist organizations. He's also a runner, he cooks, he loves his mama. I haven't even finished this book yet, and I'm basically obsessed. My newest favorite character, I'm gonna go with Morgan from Birthday by Meredith Russo. Morgan is a trans teenager, and over the course of this book comes to terms with her identity. Meanwhile, she's navigating high school, navigating a fraught relationship with her single dad, with her best friend, who she may or may not be in love with, and it's heartbreaking, but she's so strong. I loved this book so much. One of my favorite books of the year. Definitely was a contender for favorite book I've read this year, and it's all because of Morgan. She's fantastic. She's such an excellent character and so well developed, and if you haven't read Birthday, I do highly recommend it. A book that made me cry. I'm gonna go with The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. I just read this last month. It's a prequel to Practical Magic, which I haven't read, but it basically follows this group of siblings in the 60s, 70s, I think mostly just the 60s, 70s, maybe the 80s too. Basically from childhood to adulthood as they navigate relationships and family dynamics and tragedy. Meanwhile, they are magic. They each have sort of unique magical powers, and their family has been cursed that every person they fall in love with will die, which isn't great. This definitely made me cry, but the kind of crying that was like wonderful. I was very sad, but I cried because I loved them, because I hurt to see them suffer, if that makes sense. So the kind of crying that was good. A book that made me happy, I'm gonna go with Beach Read. I read this one a couple of months ago and I couldn't put it down. The banter between the characters was like top level, back and forth, like so witty and hilarious. The romance was fantastic. The whole concept was fantastic. I think I read it in 24 hours. It just made me feel good. Most beautiful book I've bought or received this year. I don't buy books I haven't read, and I haven't received any books so far this year that I'm aware of. But the most beautiful book I've read so far this year is Where the Lost Wander. Look at it. Look at it. I'm just obsessed with the colors and that font, and I loved this book, so the inside matches the outside as far as content, and it's a beautiful story. But the cover, like this is the kind of cover that Jamie's going to read always. Like you put this cover on any book, I'm gonna read it. And the last question, books I have to read by the end of the year. So for me, I made a challenge for myself at the start of the year to reread all of Jane Austen's novels, all 6 of her published, completed works, in chronological order, publication order, by the end of the year. I have now read, I have 5 to go, and the year is literally half over. So that's what I've got to do. Because I am not failing at this challenge. I am going to read them all by the end of the year. Just you wait. So that's it. Those are my answers for the mid-year book freakout tag. I've read so many wonderful books this year. It was really a challenge for me to come up with answers for all of these questions because there were so many that could have fit any of these questions. If you've read any of these books and you loved them, let's talk about it down in the comments. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.